Today's episode is brought to you by 5 years of High Noon Podcast.
It's High Noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Double Evans. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. Holy crap, are we old?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're sending our podcast to kindergarten. How does that feel? That's a realization when you think about it.
If I didn't have nieces in college, that probably would have blown my mind.
Oh.
But remembering your niece being born and holding them as a baby, and then
them going to college,
coming home on break from college is
okay. See, I
an
have
awful, horrible experience for me, not them. I'm sure they're having a great time. But, that probably would have messed me up otherwise.
Well, it is here. 5 years. It was usually I'm reminded by BlizzCon, but rip IRL BlizzCon. Of course, we're going to be getting BlizzCon line in February, I think is when it is.
Something like that. It's gonna be a big Overwatch event, though. I'll tell you that much.
It needs to be.
Yes.
And hopefully maybe Diablo. But we talked a little bit about that on our last episode, Death, which was our yearly crossover event, Omnic Noon, the Omnic Lab.
Yeah, a lot of fun doing that with those gentlemen over there. So welcome to anybody that's new to the show. I know a couple people from their Discord was looking for our Discord and things like that after we did that episode. Always a lot of fun. If you guys are new to the show from there, welcome. I'll apologize in advance, and not for anything in particular, just generally speaking.
Just a general blanket.
Listen, as much as I want to go on a tear-filled trip through the past here, blast from the past, we haven't done an Overwatch League episode in a little bit, and we're in the middle of a to be continued episode.
Yes,
and we've got more than
need
half
to be
of it
continued.
To do. So we better get right into it, my
yes
friend. Let's skip everything else.
Okay, well, let's just jump right into it. And okay, so we've got some updates. Death was mentioning this in the pre-show. I'm going to rapid go through the updates from teams that we've already talked about from the last episode. If you're wondering what the heck we're talking about, go to not last episode, 2 episodes ago with the breakdown. And I'm just going to go through all of those teams that we've already talked about that had additions since then, and then we'll be jumping back in through the rest of the team. So we are going to, like you said, Death, we're going to rapid fire these, but we'll stop and talk about the important things here. Okay. First is the Atlanta Reign, and Pelican has joined Atlanta Reign from O2 Blast.
Flex DPS player, solid addition, should fit in well with their 2-hit scans.
Okay. This one is the one that hits a little personally to us, as we're backing this player, but I'm 37 has joined the dark side, aka the Boston Uprising.
Boo! Listen, Jon Snow can't become a Lannister. That's not how this works. This is a worse ending than people thought Game of Thrones actually was. I want my money back. Didn't spend any money on anything Boston related, so I don't know what for yet, but I know I want it back.
Yeah, that's
you're dead to me.
It's like, I guess that just goes to show, right? I mean, I'm 37 did the speed run from like sitting on his couch not knowing what Overwatch was all the way to the commissioner seat, but the thing is you go too far and then it goes back to the beginning, and actually goes back further than you thought, which is the Boston Uprising. You'd be better just not knowing what Overwatch is than playing on the Boston Uprising.
Poor guy.
Yeah, at least if you don't know what Overwatch is and you're playing, you're just sitting on your couch, you at least have a chance to to be put on a real team at some point. But
so at this point, players that sign for that team, I don't even feel bad for them anymore. You know what you're getting into. The information's
there's
out
enough
there.
of there's enough of
I
a
felt
pattern
bad
now.
for the year one guys like note that we talked to. They're like, oh, is there a reason not to like the Patriot, like the Craft of the world? I felt a little bad for those guys, but it's the cat's out of the bag. We're there. You're dead to me.
Yep. It's like the opposite of locker room cancer. It's the cancer is the locker room, and yeah, yikes. Okay. So do a real quick adjustment there. Okay, perfect. So Fearless has joined the Dallas Fuel from Shanghai. Eggsy has joined the Dallas Fuel from Paris. Rappel has joined the Dallas Fuel from free agency. The Dallas Fuel have signed Fielder from Paris, and Jexay has joined the Dallas Fuel from Houston.
Okay, so I'm not going to do what everybody thinks I'm going to do and flip out, man. But what I am going to do is laugh at Hastro here. Okay, they're obviously building a phenomenal team, right? Like this is a great roster. You should already be thinking about, are they favorites to win this thing next year? The talent is certainly there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super excited to watch them blow it. I mean, I'm just super pumped to watch them choke and screw it up. Because that's more often than not what happens with super teams, right? And we're in super team territory.
We're a super team that is specifically playing under the Dallas Fuel banner, which we've seen happen.
Right. And I do also want to continue to make fun of Hastro for this because it's hysterical to me. Him tweeting about how much effort he's putting in to build this roster for 2021, how tired he is now that it's done. And they put out a tweet saying they're done, so that should be the end of the. You bought it. You didn't build anything. You didn't even try these guys out. You think you're sitting Fearless down for a trial? You think you're buying a half of the Paris Eternal, the good half of Paris Eternal, and trying them out? Stop it. This is the lazy, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm throwing money at it solution, and you're out there acting like you just ran 3 marathons back to back, and you need to sleep for 2 weeks. It's hysterical. Get over it, man. Like, you don't have to act like you committed in a different way, okay?
Yeah.
Your fans don't care.
Right.
I'm going to continue to throw stones at you because you're my rival, and you went the Yankees route, which is like, oh, there's no salary cap, so we don't have to be good at our jobs. We just need money, and we can just buy this roster. Yeah. Right. Like, it's just stop pretending like you we're in the salt mine slaving away for 14 hours a day over the course of this offseason so far. You bought it. You're trying to buy a championship. Not mad about it, but I don't respect it either, right? Like, I'd much rather, unless if it's, hey, listen, if Houston wanted to do it, I'm not going to sit there and complain, you know what I mean? But I'm also not going to be like, oh,
look at the amazing,
Harsh is just so brilliant, or Koolman as a general manager is a genius, because, like, take a step back, calm down. Don't try to pull the wool over people's eyes, right? You're committed to winning. You're committed to your fan base. That's enough for your fans. So that's the end of it. You don't have to try to sell me that you're doing some Herculean task or Herculean effort. Like, let it go, man. You need to stop that angle, because I swear he just looks like a complete fool to me when he tweets like that. Yeah. Listen, this is, I don't know what a general manager does. Maybe he really did have to, like, go to battle in a different way, right? Like, maybe he really did have to, like, contract negotiations and buyouts, and, like, it could have been, maybe it was. Yeah. But, like, when you're taking that route, it looks lazy. So, like, don't try to fight the optics of it. Just ignore the optics of it. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's not even a bad look for Hastro or whatever, because it's not like he cares what I think on it, but I know I'm not the only one that kind of felt this way about it. And but it's just funny to me. Congratulations on attempting to just purchase an Overwatch League championship. Stop patting yourself on the back. Anyways, we covered Dallas. Nothing's changed. They're still spending out the wazoo. Eggsy's the perfect hit scan. We know that because he worked with the rest of those players before, right? Yeah. Jexay was a phenomenal main support for Houston. Fielder is coming from Paris as well. That's great. Rappel should be a strong backup for Fielder, or maybe Fielder doesn't get on local ping. He should be fine. And Fearless was in the MVP conversation. So this is now elite talent top to bottom. And if, they do falter, if they do fail, I am going to tap dance all over it. It's going to be great. So
yeah.
I'm not trying to set it up as a win-win situation for me, because I will be salty if Dallas does win, as is my job as a Houston fan. But I don't know. It's been bugging me and making me laugh this whole time that he's been presenting it that way, like he's working so hard.
Well, and I mean, this is not to go too deep into it, but I feel like we've seen this with specifically Astro multiple times, where it's like he's not consulting the marketing department and like speaking the narrative that they should be. He's just like, oh, I felt really great about doing this. This was, I mean, it probably was, spending a bunch of money is probably not the easiest thing to do, right?
I mean, I don't have it, so I can't vouch
right.
for that.
I mean, negotiations, whatever. But no, you're 100% right. It wasn't like, they found the best players and trialed and did all that. It's like, no. It's like, look, buy the Overwatch League, a box of Overwatch League cards. Look at the back on the stats card and just call all the people who had the highest stats, right? Like the best players. That's fine. Sure, go for it. They could have easily made like imagine if New York did something like this, or a team like New York, where and instead of like, oh yeah, pat myself on the back for creating this great team, if they just went the line of like, we're pushing for dominance or something like that. Just like a generic, not like just saying we're trying to win. Or
we're fully committed to bringing a championship to Dallas.
Yeah.
And
it looks better. The fans are pumped about it. Like the fans are going to be happy about this anyway, right? Like you said,
you're just giving people like me ammunition by presenting it that way. Which is, thank you.
Yeah, we've so actually this is good for everybody. No, but I mean, we've seen Hastro kind of do this before, where it's just like he just kind of does his own thing because he's got the he owns the team, so he can do whatever he wants. But okay, enough about Dallas, at least for now. We'll move on here. Shu, Nero, and Happy are all released from Guangzhou. Mike Lee has joined Guangzhou Charge from Bilibili Gaming, which was the Hangzhou Academy.
Bilibili Gaming.
Bilibili. What did I say? Bilibili?
Bilibili.
I don't know what I said.
I don't know that I'm right either. For all I know
Bilibili. No, you're more right than I am at the very least. Mandu has joined Guangzhou, the Guangzhou Charge from NYXL. Kareev has joined the Guangzhou Charge from Toronto. Choi Se Hwan has joined Guangzhou Charge from Element Mystic, and Arachne has joined the Guangzhou Charge as their head coach.
I'm glad you paused on Arachne's name, because even though I know it, I read it as like Arcanine every single time.
Yeah,
like
I had
Arcane.
Arachne.
I don't know why. I can't read that. I can't read the man's name, and it's not overly difficult.
No,
it trips me up every time. So I'm glad.
Now that I'm looking at it again, I'm surprised I read it the way I did the first time, because I'm not seeing it anymore.
Yeah, listen, I talked in our last episode. Guangzhou was like one of the linchpin, key teams to watch in free agency here, because Shu, Nero, and Happy were all big ticket item free agents, and they're letting them all go, and then they're filling it in with Mandu and Kareev, and I'm just like, and they're instantly budget, right? Like I'm just instantly they become like conservative spenders in this market where there seems to be more buyers than there are talent suddenly, and I didn't think it was going to be that way. So maybe they're just, the writing's on the wall and we couldn't fill the holes we have now, so let's wait for a different offseason or something. Yeah, it's going to be a little crazy to see how this team works out. Obviously, we don't have all their pieces yet, but it's doesn't look to me like we're talking about a repeat number 2 Korean placement team, depending on how the season's structured when we get there, et cetera, et cetera. So they're seeming to be kind of one of the budget selling teams, which is probably rough for their fans, but I don't think their fan base is a big overlap, being that they're mostly Chinese speakers with the High Noon fan base. So I don't know that I'm upsetting too many people when I say that, but a little disappointing, because of the Chinese teams, they're probably the one I liked the most. but in large part because of those three, right? Like those three
Right.
were just really super fun to watch. Kind of highlight reels waiting to happen. So interested to see where all of them go. We do have some of their landing spots that we'll get to later, but not all of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, I think we're gonna be seeing this play out. It's like you've got the Dallas who opened up the checkbook, and you've got the Guangzhou Chargers of the world who are being more conservative, I guess would be the way to put it. But all right, now we're gonna get into that. That is the update from the teams that we already talked about. Let's get into some new teams, Death, starting with the Hangzhou Spark. And at the DPS slot, we've got Ado.
Out of here.
Yeah, I forgot how we were doing this. Yeah, I'm just reading off the teams and then the names and you're.
Yeah, read off who they still have, or like read off the greens and the yellows and the uncoloreds, and then I'll fill in the rest.
Okay, so we have Architect under existing contract, Godsby under existing contract, Shy has been signed from the academy team. That's the DPS core for Hangzhou. And for tanks, Gushui is under existing contract. Sasin, the team can exercise option until November 13th. I don't know if we have I don't know if they've updated the November 13th people yet on the document. So we'll give you an update probably next episode or the episode after that, depending on when they update that. And then Liege has been signed in free agency from Team CC, which is the Shanghai Dragons Academy. There are your tanks. And then for supports, we've got Coldest, whose option was exercised, IDK under existing contract, and Mika option exercised. And MCD has been signed in free agency from Element Mystic.
I'll be calling him Mick D forever. I don't care how it's supposed to be said. I'm an American who likes fast food, so it's Mick D.
Yep.
Yeah, they let Ado and Adora go. QOQ, they exercised his option and then released him. Interesting. Presumably cost themselves some money there. Let Rhea go and Bebe go as well. This is a team with a solid core that I think even though I've so far not been over the moon with their additions, I think there's a decent chance here for them to level up. I don't know anything about, how did you pronounce the off-tank's name?
What did I say?
Liege.
I said Liege. It's
We're certainly wrong on all of the attempts we've made so far.
Yes.
So I don't know anything about him, to be perfectly honest with you. But presumably, he's a solid prospect. There's a reason that Shanghai had him on the academy squad. There's a reason he got called up. McD is one that I believe was
I'm gonna laugh every time you say it now.
pretty seriously sought after by a fair number of people, judging off of our Discord, and we've had a lot of fun. Just anytime anybody becomes a free agent, it's like a race between me and the Gladiators fans to just be like, oh, they're on my team now. We just have been claiming everybody that hits free agency or discusses that they're exploring options or anything like that. Been a lot of fun messing around with those guys there. And so I think that we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on them, because we know how good like Gushui is. We know how good Architect and Godsby are. Shy, I believe, just became old enough. He was not eligible before, but he was one of the Chinese players that was like on the World Cup team when they went on that run. Their jersey or T-shirt is signed somewhere in Blevins' room right now.
Yeah, it's right over there.
So he's Blevins already has the man signature. So we're excited to see how he pans out in the league. And overall, I think we're looking at a solid team here for Hangzhou, with a decent chance to level up on what was, all things considered, a pretty disappointing 2020 season. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but there will be plenty of familiar faces for Spark fans, and I think there's more Spark fans in this hemisphere than there are Guangzhou fans. So hopefully you guys are excited about that.
Yeah, looks like they kept a relatively solid core on the DPS side and the support side, and they're still, kept Gushui, the big performer from last season. And I think there's still potentially a couple of slots here and there that can be filled in with some exciting prospects if they want to go that direction. But
yeah, or maybe they need the meta to get really hot or something. But I think we're looking at a situation where that's more likely than it was this past year. After, I mean, you mentioned Gushui was a big performer last year, but I think you're still in the season that just ended is this year and not not last year. Because he was big in his first year, and I think like in the MVP conversation there as well. So hopefully he can have a bit of a resurgence with some new talent around him.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, Dath, we're moving on. We're moving to your Outlaws here.
It's fine. We don't got much to say.
Well, we'll start with the DPS core. Blase and Linkser both have their options exercise. Team can exercise option until November 13th. Again, we'll update that. We'll update you when we get that.
I actually believe we know both of them will not be back.
Okay.
They're a bare minimum. We don't have anything like official from the team, but I've seen Linkser on like a tier 2 roster or something. And I don't believe Blase is coming back, but we know Dante is because he hit free agency and they kept him. They were able to retain him. So they're theoretically in a buyer's stance right now. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but again, there's a lot of teams that I think are in the same boat. So we're going to need a couple more from each of them to really know who's doing what.
For sure. Okay, moving on to the tanks, we've got Hydration, who is under existing contract, and Muma. Team can exercise option until November 13th.
Muma's one I think that's done as well. Hydration, under existing contract, theoretically doesn't want to just walk away from money on the table, but like, what are we doing? Put the man back to DPS, sign a viable main tank, and let's go. Because Dante Hydration with a hit scan stud, I think, could be a pretty solid DPS core.
Sure.
And you usually want to go to 4 on the DPS, so maybe I think you bring in somebody. Personally, I mean, this is my wish list, but I'd love to see Nero in there as well. And then you've got Hydration able to maybe be a little flexible if you wanted to have the weird tank option in your back pocket, or if him as your backup main tank in case somebody goes down. But I would say, man, it's hard to know too, because I don't know if they're planning on going mixed or full Western.
Right.
Obviously they're not going full Korean because they have 2 players who are not Korean on the roster. But I've heard a lot of speculation that, Meko became a free agent and they declined his option because they wanted to restructure it.
Right.
So maybe they think his value is less than it was when they signed him last year, and they can get him cheaper. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously we know, Jexay, Boink, Repel are all gone. We've seen the Jexay and Repel signed elsewhere already, so they can't possibly come back. They're a little bit of blank slate right now. You've got your backup main tank / maybe a flex DPS player. You've got you've got Dante locked up. He's got a little bit of a non-traditional hero pool, but he's somewhere between a hit scan flex. He's a flexy hit scan player, is how I would describe that.
He's so flexy.
I mean, mostly flex, I guess, but he does your tracer and some things that typically are in the quote hit scan role. So gonna be really, really curious. I'm not optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic, like I said, but there's still so much in the air. We have no idea what Houston will look like. There's still plenty of opportunity, plenty of talent that can be signed. Maybe they are going mixed Korean and English, and they grab somebody like Diem, and then they grab Nero, and then they sign a contender's main tank player, and bring Meko back, and then we hit the ground running, real fast with a couple of additions. But I could also see them going, well, Dante's here for fan service. We're still in the hydration experiment, and we're patching holes, and it doesn't have to be great, but going out, you spent to get Dante, right? They didn't go cheap to re-sign Dante, so that's where the cautious optimism comes in. Hopefully we see some more soon.
I was wondering, when you're, right now, taking a look at it, there's 2 players, right, that are locked in. Is that as a fan, not like taking the objective hat off and just looking as a fan, is that you mentioned cautious optimism, but like, is it actually exciting to see? Like, I don't know what my team could look like. It can be. I mean, it can't get worse, right? I mean, it definitely could, but because you're kind of middle of the pack team.
Here's the entirety of my stance on the Houston Outlaws right now. Then is the next thing that we should talk about when we talk about what they've done with their offseason. Junk Buck is now the new co-head coach of the Houston Outlaws. Like, yes, Junk Buck's great. Like, he's coming from the crusty coaching tree.
Yeah,
that's where I want my head coach to come from.
Sure.
They're not all going to hit, but they've got a good, solid idea of what they're doing.
Right.
But they're co-head coaches, which isn't a thing, and
no, it's
isn't
definitely
done
not
in sports. And why do you have two people doing one person's job?
Too many cuts.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's okay to fire Harsha, I think, right? Like, you can
does
just
he get
be
paid
like,
half? Do they each get paid half?
I don't know. Junk Bunk almost certainly did not get paid half of anything. So yeah, like I don't know. Esports has non-traditional roles in teams, right? They don't necessarily follow the traditional sports model of this is what your general manager does, right? General manager could be like, hey, you're the logistics guy. You're going to go out and you're going to book the hotel rooms and you're going to, that sort of a thing. Make sure we've got the hand warmers that we need, order a bunch of those. That could be Cool Matt's job, as he's the new general manager of the Houston Outlaws. Yeah. Harsha could be the scout, which I'm kind of fine with. I don't know how he would do in that role. I just know he thinks Farah is like an all-the-time hero pick in the playoffs when your life's on the line. And that's not how Overwatch works. So, like, I don't want him to be the head coach of my team anymore. So it doesn't have to be bad. But boy, does it not fill me with confidence that this team can't decide on who their head coach is. And it feels like they flipped a coin to see who it was going to be. And it landed on its side standing up. And they're just like, well, I guess we're going to keep both of them. Everything's bigger in Texas anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, because I like Junk Bunk. Like, he's one of the guys that I would have wanted to be my head coach after letting, the wish I had of clear out the staff, bring in new guys, reset the roster finally, probably keep Dante, and let's go. But I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Like I said, I'll make up my mind when the roster fills out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it also begs the question of, like, not only the, like, split decision-making and, like, who's actually in charge and also what is a co-head coach, but also you're paying someone to do another person, like, you're paying two people to do one person's job. So, like, it's not, the organization does not have infinite money, and even if it did, spend more on better players. Pull the Dallas, right? Like, it's always, if you have a superfluous person on the coaching staff, it's like you'd rather just see that either like in a more specified role in the coaching staff, not co-head coach. What? Or just like, hey, pay the extra $1,000 to get a better, DPS or a better support line or whatever. Like, it never feels good having spending any amount of resources on a co-head coach. Like, just get rid of one of them. But neither here. Well, it is here or there, but I guess we'll see. Both. It's both here and there. But we'll delve deeper into it as things transpire. Okay, moving on now to London, and I will give the preface here. Not seeing any green here, Death. I'm just seeing, you mentioned Mick D before, but I'm seeing Mickey D's colors right now. It's all red and yellow, but okay. We've got Glister from the DPS line under existing contract. That's the end for DPS. Tank line, we've got Bernard under existing contract. That's the end for tanks. And then we have Fuse and Sanguinar on the support line, both under existing contract. And everybody else is red, Death.
Yeah, and a mutual agreement. So they seem to have paid out some portion of their contracts
Yeah.
to let them go.
Yeah.
That's in my mind, at least what that means. I don't have any actual reason to think that's the case. They're fully resetting again.
Yeah.
The players they kept are the ones that they believe have trade value on the market, and that's why they kept them. I believe we know for a fact that Bernard and Glister are gone. We've got Sanguinar rumored to Florida.
Chad
And
is saying
then
Sanguinar is also gone.
Okay. Yeah, that lines up with what we're seeing. None of these players are going to be on this roster. And if they are on the roster, they're very, very unlikely to see playing time. Nuki's been named the GM of the London Spitfire. She's done some interviews and had some conversations, and they put out some content about what they want this team to be. They seem to be pretty straightforward about they're trying to build something. They're trying to build something out of European talent. I expect the British Hurricane to be a large percentage of this roster. They've been killing it in EU contenders. And I think everybody else in EU contenders is pretty excited about them no longer being in EU contenders. So I think they're all pretty solid signings and kind of bring ups. So we'll see exactly what it is. There's notably a handful of other European players that have become available. You could see a Lynxer on this team. Something like that. I'm not going to go through the list and try to identify all the Europeans that have been released, but he's one that's obviously near and dear to my heart, as his jersey's right there. But yeah, so this is another team we don't have any information. I will say they have Reprise as their head coach now. He used to be a coach on the Valiant in season 2. He was with Mayhem Academy before that. And he's been a team owner of Revival and Delta Phoenix, which I think is like a subdivision of Revival, like their open division team. And then they have like their trials or / contenders hopeful roster. And yeah, so he's going to try to get back into coaching. Valiant season 2 did some things very, very well. They had a solid finish. So I think there's reason to be hopeful in this hire. I'm a little surprised by it personally. It's just, I don't know. It's when you go out of coaching for a year, there's no guarantee you come back and still have it, right? So maybe the game's moved on a little bit. I mean, think of all the changes that have happened in this game and all the changes that are going to happen by the time the next season starts. We're kind of operating under the assumption that we're getting a late starting season and Overwatch 2 will be the game that it is played on. So with all those changes, with everything there. So it seems to be a little bit of a risky head coaching hire. But again, we know so little about these head coaches. We've talked about this ad nauseum, how it drives us nuts a little bit. We want metrics. We want ways to, insight into how these coaches are doing. And I'm basically not going to bash a head coaching hire when I don't have any information about it. But the little bit of information I have is like split, right? He's been on some teams that have done some things. He's had some time off. Doesn't have to be a good thing. Doesn't have to be a bad thing. He's kind of coming in with a bit of a fresh slate in my mind. And yeah, we'll see if he can prove to be. I mean, I think there's probably like 12 Overwatch League coaches that are actually good at their job. And maybe it's 13 now. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna bring up the man, if you're a London fan, this is like it's got to be disheartening, right? Like you had obviously season 1 championship, into very mediocre season 2, into like complete rebuild season 3, and now it's like another complete rebuild. Like, what was the point of the second rebuild? Or the first rebuild. If you're keeping actually nothing. The
point of it was they made a lot of money selling the Seoul Dynasty, their roster.
Very possibly.
But as a fan, that doesn't sit well with you. And all they've really done is they spent a year identifying Bernard, Glister, Sanguinar, and Fuse as players for other teams.
As sellable options.
With. And as a fan, I would be upset. As a fan, I would be upset they're trying to region lock my team. Why? I don't. Okay. And you know what? in their defense, maybe it makes more sense now in a COVID situation. Do you want people having to get visas from Asia and all these things to come join? But like, if you have a predominantly Asian roster, don't you just go play in Asia then, like you did last year? I don't know. It would bother me, but at the end of the day, as long as they are able to cobble together and build a solid roster that can compete, I don't care. Like, that's the thing about region locking to me is, if you happen to all be of the same region and you built the best roster you could, then it doesn't matter. But if you're turning down or not looking at talent just because they're not from Europe, then that just strikes me as dumb and pointless.
Well, it kind of seems like I agree in general, but also like they region locked the Hurricanes like a while ago, right? If I recall correctly, like the British Hurricanes were region locked like a very long time ago, because I remember it happening, but I barely remember it.
I think that's mostly just how EU Contenders works. I don't know that it was ever a concerted
for the
effort
team
to do it.
Okay,
because if you're going to be Korean and you want to go into another region, you're going to NA, so that you're in the faces of all the scouts for all the academy teams, that sort of a situation. And if you're not, you're maybe going to China, or you're staying in Korean Contenders or something like that. So I just don't know that it was ever, and it's never been a beacon for competition, right? In the way that some of the other regions have been. So I don't know if it ever appealed to the Korean talent to want to go there. I'm sure money appeals to them, but you don't also want to be spending up for your tier 2 talent across your entire roster. But hey, at the end of the day, what it does set them up to be is like actually use your academy team as a feeder system for your Overwatch League team. And I think there's a lot of value in that. So I don't want to approach this like it's all negative, right? There are some benefits to doing this. Now, if your Contenders team and your tier 2 team and your academy team is going to be all European, then like having a roster on your Overwatch League team that speaks the same language allows you to then utilize two-way contracts, and it does give you some advantages. But at the end of the day, I just want the most talented 6 players on the stage that my team can afford and sign, so that we got the best chance to compete.
I mean, it can't go unsaid that Nuki is the GM, and that was her team. So like, bring in the team, especially like in the age of or the time, COVID times, and like potentially at least semi post COVID. We have no idea what the season's going to look like. The teams probably have a maybe a marginally better idea, but like, if you're not sure how much, if any, if you don't know what the season's going to look like, yeah, you can have the best team in the world and you can, pull the Dallas and spend, but like it can still flop if the conditions are weird, right? And like, I would rather have a solid core of a team that you're used to, especially if you're a new GM. Like, hey, yes, the lights can be on you, but like, you can pull the sort of, Vancouver Titans of, bring a Contenders team in and use that synergy to play up, right? Maybe they're not the most talented on paper team, but they have that team synergy and they've been doing well together. Maybe they are better than Overwatch League team. So we'll see. I don't hate it. It makes a lot more sense, and I think it can be encouraging if you're a London Spitfire fan, for sure. It's just still like, I would just say, try to ignore last season and be like, yeah, you basically took a season off and maybe you made financial gains, but like as a fan, that's kind of a slap in the face.
Nothing to you.
Yeah.
Take solace in this though. We really, really like Nuki a lot.
Yes.
We've met her. She's very, very smart, very, very in tune with the game. Did build an EU Contenders team that dominated the region for a long time. So I think that's a great call up there. And you've got to trust that person. If you're hiring them to do that job, you have to trust their judgment and let them build their team here at this level and see how it works. And if you're wondering, we're taking the credit. We're calling that a high noon bump. ATP alumnus Nuki taking the high noon bump into the Overwatch League. I don't know if we've taken credit for that yet or not, but we're doing it again. Yeah.
We certainly will now. Okay. Let's move on now and talk about the LA Gladiators, starting with the DPS. We got Bird Ring, option exercise, Kevster, and Mirror, also option exercised on the DPS side. For the tanks, we've got Space with the option exercise, and Muse has joined LA Gladiators from the Eternal Academy. And then on the support side, we have the former two-time champion Moth from the San Francisco Shock joining the LA Gladiators. So there's your core for the LA Gladiators team. Death, let's talk about who they lost.
They lost Jaru, which is probably for the best. They lost Bijou, LH Cloudy, and OGE, probably for the best. OGE has the ability, but he doesn't always have the availability, which makes me super nervous. And also, he's shown flashes of being able to be kind of elite, but it's never really panned out. It's never consistently been there. And they're dead to me because they cut Shaz and Big Goose. And, that's a big honk ass right there.
Yep.
That's not a small goose you let go. Okay, no, that's not a small goose.
That's a biggin.
It's a big goose. Thankfully, Moth is more than equipped to fill the main support role.
Yeah.
We're hearing some things about Shu possibly in this role.
Okay.
We'll have to wait and see. That would be a great signing there.
Mm-hmm.
Space is great on the off tank role. We know that.
Yeah.
Muse is a main tank player that comes from. He was on loan a bunch. That's why he was kind of a weird one. Eternal Academy. He was on loan to WGS Phoenix and 200 MS, according to Liquipedia.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the main tank options that was talked about very, very highly among the contenders crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So signing him was mad. Anyways, had to be done. Had to be done.
Did it though?
Oh, absolutely.
Only
we'll get the drop for another time. But yeah, and then their DPS score. I mean, Birdring had a resurgent performance last year. I don't remember if he was our comeback player of the year or not, but he was certainly in the conversation and absolutely deserving of it. So I think he's great, and I want to see him continue in this new spot, see if he can keep flourishing there. Kevster, I think, a ton of hype. Maybe you didn't see it. I also don't think he ever joined the team and played on reasonable ping the entire time.
Right.
So hopefully they can get him in there. And Mirror, whatever. I think he was the guy that played every single role though, right? So if you're talking about a bench player and you've got somebody that can play tank and support and can kind of make that transition easily, you're just talking about somebody with a high Overwatch IQ, and maybe that's exactly what you need for your seventh man. So I'm not gonna hate on that particular roster spot, although I think as far as his DPS performance goes, I was pretty underwhelmed last year. But yeah, there's plenty of value otherwise there. They did also make Brenda their general manager. Don't know too much about Brenda, so we won't speak too much to that. But it is going to be, they're an interesting team because Moth is a great addition, to go from Shaz Big Goose to think you're leveling up, right? If Shu happens and we're talking about a team that is in a really, really good spot. And I'm going to be very interested to see how they're able to put it all together, what DP is able to do with this roster. Should be a lot of fun to see them play out. I know the Glads fans in the Discord are very excited and very pumped with how this has gone so far, and I'm with them. I wanted Moth. I mean, obviously, I think everybody wanted Moth, right?
Yeah.
Muse was on a lot of people's wish lists, and I think he might be, at least as of right now, the key to the whole thing, right? If he pans out, if he proves to be Overwatch League ready and able to play with the best main tanks in the world, then they might just be off and running.
Yeah. I will point this out, Death, not to get you too excited, but Shaz and Big Goose cut contract expired. They're free agents in the support line.
Shaz retired.
Oh, Shaz retired. Okay.
Yep.
Well, never mind. I was going to say there's a big gap on the support line for Houston. Just saying.
I would love a large goose.
That
I
would be
love a
hey,
large goose.
We can still you can still dream. Okay.
Think about a goose. I want to keep the Honka S emote in our Discord.
Gotta. Okay. Let's move on to the other LA team here, the LA Valiant. We've got, starting off the DPS, we've got KSF. We've got the November 13th option potential for the team. Not sure if we have a confirmation on them or not yet. We've got KSP and Shax. Both have had their option for 2021 exercised. For tanks, we've got Dreamer, who's had their option exercise, and the support line for LA Valiant in Lastro and Rain have both had their option in 2021 exercised.
Yeah, they let Apply go, which is fine. I think he was also fine to keep around. Like, he's probably a good bench DPS player.
Sure.
But I don't think they really needed to keep him. KSF is a little unknown, as you said. We're still hoping to figure that out, but Shax and KSP, I think, are really good signings. They were strong performers. Dreamer makes me hard. It makes it a little difficult to like get super invested in this team until you guys, if you've been listening for a while, you know I'm big on the main tank and the flex support positions. I think they are places where you really have to be very, very strong to, really, really excel in the league. And I'm not sure Dreamer's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Surprised they let McGravy go. He seemed to be one of the players that popped off on the screen a little bit. He also fit their simp lord persona that the whole squad seems to have. And I think that's important,
Yeah.
We joke about it and we joke about it, a decent amount because these guys are easy to joke about, right? There's selfies of McGravy and a Diva onesie being retweeted by Halsey, who I still don't know who that is, but apparently it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I got to see what they do with it. There's enough openings here. Lastro and Rain. Lastro seemed all right. Rain, I'm not super sold on yet. I don't know. It's hard to judge when you're on these middling teams.
Mm-hmm.
Who's holding you back and who's doing well, because especially on some of the positions, main support's a little one of them. I mean, you can be bad and stand out, but I think if you're just okay, you can look just however the team does at the time.
Right.
So we'll have to see what they do. But again, I'm expecting to be very middle of the pack on the LA Valiant, as just seems to be their entire existence in the Overwatch League of there's enough talent here that they're going to beat some really bad teams, but they're probably not going to go crazy or go on a run or I don't know.
Right.
They had one stage in season 2 or something like that, and that propelled them to a 2 seed that they did nothing with. And it's just they're a weird team, and I think they're going to continue to be. But they should be competitive, and they've got some really pop off DPS players that'll make them fun to watch. So as a neutral non-fan of them, I give them a sideways thumb. I'm not going anywhere with it yet. I don't know how to be more lukewarm than that analysis was right there. So
yeah, I mean that's
as you will.
That's their MO for sure. It has been for a long, long time. Okay, let's move on now and talk.
Just breathe
about NYXL. No, you know what? I'm excited. Screw it. Burn it down. So I noticed we have the one green has actually since been traded. So we're in McDonald's territory here. So we'll start with with DPS. We've got Libero and SBB. Option can be exercised from the team. I don't know. I don't recall having gotten an update on that. And then the only other option that could be exercised here is Jonak. who's
I
also
think
in the same
Animo
boat.
might be wrong. Animo should probably be yellow.
Oh, okay. So we've got Libero, SBB, Animo, Jonak as potential team can exercise option. Don't know that we have an official update on those.
I'm going to their Twitter because I don't trust the notes look wrong to me from my understanding.
Sure.
So, all right, that's a coach. Anyways, you can keep
Yeah,
going.
the long and short of it is everybody else has either been everyone else has either been option declined or is now a free agent. So NYXL at the very least is getting blown up in some spots and potentially could be entirely, completely blown up from the core.
Yeah, we definitely don't have any hard confirmations about people that will be sticking around.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Jonak does. I still see Animo and Liquipedia listed on the team. We know Nene, Hotba, Bianca, Who Are You were all officially sayonara'd by the Twitter account. So the rest is a little bit in flux at the moment. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Jonak remains.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say SBB remains because I don't know that they have the full. I'm not saying he should. I'm just saying I think he will.
Right.
And I'm 50-50 on Libero, but again, I think if you're this close to the full reset button, I'm cutting them all. I'm literally letting them, because the one I would have kept was Mono, and now with him gone,
yeah,
and we'll get to his landing spot later in the episode, it just makes me want to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. Jonak was an MVP in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
He's a shadow of what he was in that year. The impact he had on the stage, on the matches, was remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think he could get back to that. But there seems to be a lethargic way about this team.
Yeah.
Lackadaisical, just everything's a big shoulder shrug, like, oh well, they're super talented, so they're gonna have a good record, but like, what are they?
To what end?
Yeah, and I think you've just gotta blow it up at this point. Mono was the one I would have wanted to keep. Again, I'll expect Jonak and SBB to stay. I think you have to move on from Libero, personally.
Yeah.
I know there's people out there that will stand him until the end of time, and that just think he is an elite DPS player, and I think his hero pool is about as wide as it can possibly be. I just think where he peaks on his heroes are on the wrong ones.
Yeah.
He's best at like the maze and like just the weird kind of whatever heroes that like that may have a huge impact on the game, but like I don't know. I don't want my DPS's best hero to be Mei. I want his best hero to be Tracer, Widowmaker, even if it's something kind of niche like Pharah, or something that can like take over the game. And it's been so long since I've seen Libero have that kind of an impact on the team that it's just really, really hard to imagine a world where you want him to come back. And I get it. Maybe if you put him in and you never take him out and he's just is a mainstay, maybe he can get back to that, but at least in the way they were using him, right? So if you're keeping Libero, he's your flex DPS. You're not taking him out. His hero pool is wide enough. There's never a good excuse to. Don't go sign specialists that play Hangzhou and like play things where you're going to be tempted to sub him out. Go, you've got SBB, now go get yourself a hit scan specialist or something like that, or blow it up. You don't have to remain a Korean team. I don't know. I'm a little surprised that they're doing this, but that said, I think it might be, as crazy as it is with how high their average finish is, their win-loss record as an organization must be phenomenal. But it just feels like the right thing to me at this point to hit the reset button on it.
It seemed like they peaked, right? Like it was, and the peak was good. And like a lot of teams would be, looking back, would have been happy with their finish. But if your goal is to win a championship, which we've said for years now, that should be the goal of every single organization, at least at some point. Maybe it's not right now their goal. It should be their goal eventually, is to make a run at a championship. It's like, they weren't getting better.
No.
They
75% of the roster's peak was behind them, and that's not the end of the curve you want to be on.
Right. Exactly. So I'm fine with a complete reset. I think I agree with you on Libero. I think, SBB is sort of a face of NYXL in some ways, and that can be valuable, but like get some new blood in there. Maybe they have a redevelopment year, a rebuild year, or maybe Jonak and SBB are sort of carrying that torch. But I felt like that should have been last year, but they didn't do that. They, the Nenes and the Who Are Yous and the Mandus, and even Hoxall, they didn't do that with the team. They kept like this weird, like, well, the same core is there, but also sometimes we have other players and like we'll play them at weird spots. And like you said with Libero, like what was Libero's role last year? And it's like, just like pick a direction, pick a lane, and go with it. Don't keep jumping around. Don't half do it. Just do something all the way and follow through with error. And the classic state math exam. Get some points there. Follow through with error, but do something and gain something from it. Because now it's like, it feels like the last 3 years have been a really lot of work and a lot of amount of time to get like a top 3. And who cares about a top 3? Not me as an NYXL fan. So load up, take some, and learn something and move towards a goal. Okay. But of course, we'll be filling that in with there's still a lot of room to build a team here. There's still obviously a whole tank line that needs to be developed. And really, I mean, any amount of the team can still be developed. So kind of exciting, but also it's scary. It's always going to be scary. But let's move on and talk about Paris here. Also in the same sort of boat, Death. We've got...
No, they're not. They're on a boat made of Dallas's money. They're on a yacht, Blevins.
Yeah.
They are living the life right now.
Yes.
I mean, their players are miserable, but their ownership is happy.
Yeah. Well, we've got Nico, option can be exercised soon. Option can be exercised. And Ben Best, option can be exercised. Everybody else, gone.
So... yeah, I don't know what this team's going to be. There's not a single name left that's yellow that I would want them to keep if I was rooting for the Paris Eternal.
Right.
I think they're all underwhelming.
Yep.
I expect all 3 of them to come back because I think this team just cashed out, and I think they're going to go with a marketable route for a season.
Sure.
And then potentially reset and try to rebuild later. I wouldn't be surprised to see just any European. I mean, if they're French, copy paste them into this list coming out of contenders. Like,
sure.
I mean it. Like, it's just, I think they're in a 2-man race here, fighting with London to try to sign some European talent. And I think London is probably in a position where they're more willing to spend money, which is crazy because Paris just made so much by brilliantly signing all these free agents. I mean, think about what they lost. Like, they signed Sparkle and Eggsy, and FD God came out of nowhere. Fielder was a mid-season addition. All of them were just like lights out home run hits. They went from nobody to we won a tournament and we're talked about like a top 4 team here and there at times. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, they pulled it off perfectly.
They leveled up.
Yeah.
And Boston must just be maulding because this is what they want to do so bad.
Yes.
And like, I don't even think this was ever Paris's intention. I just think like Hastro pulled up with a Brinks truck and is like, listen, I'm leaving with whoever I want.
Right.
From your roster.
Go in, peruse around, take whatever bags you like, but I'm leaving with the players I want.
Right. Yeah. and so, like, I'm not even going to sit here and fault the organization for it.
Right.
Right. Because at the end of the day, they're all businesses trying to make money. And
Right.
what I firmly believe happened is just that Dallas was like, you slid an offer, you know, you write the number on the piece of paper, you slide it across the table, and they looked at it and they're, give it back. And he just puts an extra zero on the end, sends it back. Okay, all right, 2 more zeros. Okay, we're not turning this one.
I was joking the last time, but okay.
And then they repeated that for the, you know, all of the MVP caliber players on their roster that they had. So, there's no analysis here because there's no team.
Right.
So
there is no team.
We don't got to talk about this too much.
Yep.
But you need to spell Paris with a $sign instead of an S right now.
Yep.
Because that's where they're at as a franchise.
Yep. It's like Paris wanted to go into the card store, buy a pack, and they ended up getting a miscut alternate art foil crazy card. And there was a shark, or there was a player in there that just offered, hey, I'll give you $400 for that $3 pack you just got. Okay, I guess that's what we're doing, and decided to sell the whole binder instead. So, gotta love the random offshoot Magic the Gathering reference. It wouldn't be a 5-year High Noon podcast without random Magic the Gathering reference that no one will get. But
I can go deeper with it if you want me to.
We could, but we still have we still have a number of teams to talk about. Let's move. Okay, so let's talk about Philadelphia Fusion here. They did the logical thing and have kept Carpe under existing contract. Hisu also option exercised here for the DPS core. On the tank side, we've got Poco option exercised, and Mono has joined Philly Fusion from NY for the tank line. And then on the support line, we've got Alarm under existing contract and Funny Astro 2021 option exercised.
Yeah, they also have 9K as their head coach now, and KDG is now with Toronto. I believe we've discussed that already in the past. They let Chipsa go, which, I mean, he was their build around, right? They were supposed to blow up everything, build around Chipsa. What is this organization doing? Before I really get into this, I just want to say, Tucker, I'm positive you're listening because I might as well be your general manager right now. I'm pumped for the Philadelphia Fusion. I think they are doing this exactly right. Couple exceptions. Chipsa, EQO, Ivy are all gone. I was a big Ivy fan. I really thought he brought something to this team. I don't think he's like a locked and loaded, has to be in there kind of a player, but I felt like he was a really good part of a DPS core. But again, I want them to pare it down. They make mistakes with it. They play Hisu over Carpe on Widowmaker, which is laughably wrong.
Yep.
And I want them to make less mistakes. So personally, I would have kept Ivy, let Hisu go, or I'm sorry, traded Hisu, because I do think Hisu's a quality to very, very good hit scan player. Yep. It's just it's a matter of how they used him, and maybe the new coaching staff just won't make that mistake. So there's no marks against keeping Hisu, but it's just like my way of wanting to adjust the roster to save the coaches from themselves, kind of a situation. They kept Poco and released Fury. I don't like that even a little bit. I think you just flip the names, like you just got that 100% wrong there. But I've been on board with this releasing of Sato from about 5 minutes after they signed him, and I found out he had 3 stages worth of suspension in front of him in season 1. They brought in Mono, who I think is a different style of player than Sato for sure, but he's also just a full tier better of a main tank player for me. And I know a lot of people that disagree with that. Every Philadelphia fan in the world has hated my stance on Sato since the beginning. But like, Exhibit A, like your GM just cut the guy after his comeback performance, right? Like, still not, maybe there's just mistakes there that you're overlooking because the team's winning. Maybe there's just mistakes there that the best support line in Overwatch League is able to bandage and cover up, and maybe they don't want those anymore, so they go get like a rock star, solid, super consistent, elite, top tier main tank option in mono. Maybe that's a way you can level up a team with the record that you had in the abysmal playoff performance. Maybe exactly what I've been talking about since the moment the playoffs ended is what just happened here. And maybe Twitter doesn't know how to evaluate the main tank position. I'm just going to say that maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case. I'll do a couple more failed shatter montages for you if you want to see them.
Put it on your fleet. Put your fleet out about how Philly.
Friends don't let friends fleet, Blevins.
I still don't know.
Don't do it. But Boombox was let go on the support line. He will very soon be the flex support for the London Spitfire or the Paris Eternal because he's a European player that just got released from an Overwatch League roster. Yeah, and I think Ivy's going to find a home. I think EQO should find a home. I think I'll never watch another piece of Chipsa content ever again as long as I live because I don't watch streamers very much. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like. I mean, like I said, how do you go from the great regular season performance that you put together and how do you build on that? I don't know that cutting one of the best off tanks in the world is the way to go, and keeping Poco, who I think he's not bad. He's above average, right? But like, I don't know.
Could have easily been on the Paris Eternal or London Spitfire.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what they do to kind of fill in the rest of these gaps. They have to get some DPS players onto this roster, but just looking at, even without knowing who that projectile DPS player is going to be, we're talking about Carpe, we're talking about tank line with Poco and Mono. I think that's a marked improvement. Even though I prefer Fury, all last year they played Poco almost exclusively, right? Like it was very rare to see Fury in there. I don't know why they signed him to begin with if they weren't planning on using him, but that's neither here nor there. And then Astro and Alarm. I mean, their status and place in the hierarchy of support lines is right there at the top. It's well earned. Alarm's a nut. Probably the 2021 MVP favorite at the moment, at least, especially with his ability to make more of an impact because he's got a better main tank player right now going into the season. So yeah, I think Philly is doing this right. They're not resting on, we'll just find a better meta in the playoffs. No, we're going to get our coach has got a bad read on it and he's messing up our roster decisions. We're going to find a new coach. I think our main tank player makes too many mistakes. I'm going to go find an elite option to do this. And they did it with like minimal movement. There's a solid, really good core here that they're using to build off of. This is what I wanted to see from Philly, almost top down. My individual evaluation of the off tank aside, not arrogant enough to assume I'm right at all times, right? So maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. That could certainly be the case. And either way, he's above average. So you didn't have to make a move there. It's just a little weird because, in my opinion, your better replacement was on the roster for a whole year and like seldom used. So weird situation, but love everything they've got going on here. Really, really excited to see them run it back next year.
Yeah, definitely a good core. Speaking of good cores, let's talk about the back-to-back Overwatch League champions, the San Francisco Shock. A lot more green on this roster, as you may imagine, not wanting to fix it too much if it ain't broke. But we see Ans, option exercise, Striker, option exercise. Ons. You say Ons, I say Ants. Striker and Teo, option exercised. On the tank line, we've got Choi Hyobin, option exercised, and Smurf. Under existing contract, as well as Smurf is also under existing contract. And then we've got Super also is a free agent with existing contract expiring. And then on the support line, we've got Twilight, option exercised, Violet existing contract is expiring, and FD God has joined from Paris. One notable change here, Death. San Francisco are now cowards.
True.
As Rascal is now a free agent with the contract expiring.
Yeah, I've said this before, and the more I say it out loud, the more I really agree with it. We are operating under the assumption that the next season of the Overwatch League plays with Overwatch 2. That's going to mean like a bucket full of new heroes are going to be thrown into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the best player in the world at the new hero every time, no matter who it is? No matter what role?
It's Rascal.
No, it's Rascal. So if we're gonna get a bucket full of new heroes before the new season starts, you're cutting that man now. This is the time.
Maybe they'll pick up Libero.
Listen, maybe, and maybe Libero's better in that environment. That's another player that could certainly be the case for. That flexibility might become more valuable next season than it's been over the last two.
Right.
We'll have to keep that in mind when I discuss Libero going forward. That's a great call by you. It's rare, so I need to call it out.
we got to point it out.
Yeah, Moth leaving is a blow, but FD God was great. I'm not super sold on his Mercy, so maybe we see another main support come in, split some playtime. It could certainly happen, or you just let the best coach in the world coach up a really strong, promising, young, new player and make him into what you want him to be. It's basically what they did with Moth. So I love FD God going there. Again, just another player with a lot of talent that gets to go into a phenomenal position to succeed. Super's a big question mark here. I think he's a big get for another team. So I think free agency wise, he's going to be highly sought after.
Yep.
I do think he's a player that really, he is their persona. He doesn't fit their persona.
Yeah.
He is their entire personality.
He shaped
because he's like the only English speaking member of the roster that uses his words. Like Moth spoke English, but like doesn't speak. He's just super, super quiet. Moth nervous. So I love that, by the way. Just the team trolling him like that was phenomenal, and I'm so glad we got that inside look at it. But yeah, listen, this team kept Choi Hyo Bin, they kept Smurf. Those are two MVP candidates. They kept Striker, playoff MVP winner, right? Like they've got Ons, who was a breakout, narrow hero pool, whatever. I'm a little surprised they exercised the option on Tayo, but just because they couldn't quite fit him in, right, doesn't mean, like, now Rascal's gone. So how many heroes are now opened up where somebody else might need to fill that role? They saw enough of him, they wanted to keep him. I don't doubt Krusty. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
So they're all set whether they keep Violet or not. I think they're just fine on the flex support department, and I'm almost expecting them to let Violet go, just because you're good, man. Like, I don't know that that's a spot you need options. I think a big part of signing him when they did was like, no, he might make somebody good enough to compete with us, and we don't want that.
Right.
And going into a season, I don't think you have that attitude, but when a team breaks up that you played against in the finals the year before, you go sign one of their best players to keep them from going elsewhere. Makes a lot of sense to me. So whether they bring him back or not, I hope they don't, just because let's spread the talent around. Let's get more good teams. Let's
we want to see that happen. They might not.
Right. And I think the same kind of goes for Super, right? Like, Super has gaps in his hero pool, and he's closed them a lot working with Krusty. He looks way better on roles like the Winston, the Orisa, the little bit we've gotten to see him. But he's still a little bit a Reinhardt specialist, and in large part because he's side by side with Smurf. So from a roster construction standpoint, I'm not paying Super to be on this team anymore if I'm the GM of the San Francisco Shock. I'm spending that money elsewhere. I've got holes to fill in DPS. I want to shore up my DPS line. I need to pay FD God, because I assume he got a decent amount of cash to join this team. So, but again, he is their persona. He is their connection to the fan base, right? And I that's super valuable in its own right. So to me, it's a little 50-50 whether or not he stays. But again, still got crusty. He lost all of his assistants. They're all head coaching adversaries somewhere else, which will be interesting to watch play out. But we absolutely stand crusty on this show and trust him. There's more than enough talent here that we're talking about a team that can repeat, even without Moth, even without Super, even without Rascal, even without Violent. Not many teams could support losing those 4 players, players of that caliber, and still have us think, you're right, you're at least going back into the grand final top 4 situation again, right? But that's what this team is. So when you get that stacked, you lose players. There's no way around it.
Well, and like now, like you mentioned with Moth, like it almost it would make perfect sense if Moth, like, was a really great fit for the team, got 2 championships, and like when you win a championship, if you're a player, your value goes up, right? Like you're a championship caliber player. And San Francisco has the option to say, hey, you know what, Moth? We had a great run. Go get paid. Like we don't, we'll we brought you in as, who was Moth before that, right? Like
some guy on Toronto Esports.
Yeah. Not what Moth is today. We'll take someone, we'll take an FDE god. We'll take someone else and fit them into that position and work them up. It's a win-win, right? Moth gets paid, and San Francisco gets to develop a new level of talent. So,
and copy paste that for Super. And I know there's a lot been said about Super is like he's his arrogant persona, his kind of way of going about things says like, can you be that guy from not the best team in the league, right? From yeah, you can. You're Walter White. You're in the Empire business. You're trying. Right. You go somewhere else. You turn them into it, and then you just claim all the credit. You're just this magnet for like Supers on like that is so appealing to some people, and we don't know well enough how his brain works, but it's adjacent to that level of like confidence, cockiness, arrogance, however you want to call it. And some of those words have a negative connotation. We don't mean any of that. We love Super. Yep. I say those things because they're just accurate definitions for the way he talks, and it's not a knock on him at all. So I think him wanting to go somewhere, build something up and be the centerpiece of it instead of playing 1/6 of the maps for the team that wins the league. That sounds like Super to me. I mean, Soda's just winning 3 in a row,
right?
And getting every interview, even when he's not on the stage, right? They either way really just works for him. Yeah. So I think it's really 50-50 whether he's back or finds a new home.
Hey, go get paid, my man. You got 2 rings. Go get paid.
Go follow Junk Bunk and one of your coaches you're comfortable with, with working with, and head on over to H-Town, my man.
There you go. Okay, we've got 5 more teams, Death. So let's run through these bad boys. We'll start with Seoul Dynasty here. We've got Fitz and Illicit. Team can exercise option. Profit option has been exercised on the DPS side. Gesture option has been exercised. Marvel, Michelle, to you. Sorry.
It is.
No, it is. No, to you actually looks like is a free agent here. 2021 option declined. But Marvel and Michelle were still option can be exercised. And then on the support line, we've got Creative under existing contract, and Slime is free agent right now.
Yeah, Badosin and Toby are being let go. Options were declined. Yep. And we have reason to believe they're not staying. I guess that's probably true for 2U as well. I'm noticing I was a little inconsistent with my colorations. Yeah, there was probably a reason at the time, but that was a month ago when I made these notes for this episode. So who knows? This is a roster we don't know a ton about. We know that the linchpin pieces of Gesture and Profit are there. Creative was a stud for them and a surprise performer for me. So I'm glad to see him back. I think he's only going to continue to get better, and I'm interested in seeing exactly what he gets to. I'm half expecting them to want to re-sign Slime, but it's a little unknown because they played Toby last year, right? Like if you were that
Mhm.
interested in Slime and wanted to keep him and he was part of your future plans, I'd have thought you plugged him in when you got him, and that just never
Right.
happened. It's not like they were on such a tear that they didn't want to disrupt synergy.
Mhm.
They're known for disrupting their own synergy, often
Yep.
for zero reason.
Yep.
So there's a couple spots here. Just please go get yourself an off tank that you'll use. I'm sick of this 2 main tank players on the stage at one time. It's like playing, a boxing match with your left hand tied behind your back. Like, sure, you're a righty, you still get the punch hard, but like, how do you block? How do you peel for your back line?
Right.
Like, it hurts them in a way that was completely of their own making, right? Like,
Yep.
Tuyu looked good. He came in, he played well. Why didn't you use him? I just never understood that aspect of things from Seoul. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. This is another one where there's so much up in the air that it's hard to offer too much analysis.
Yep. A lot of question marks, but the exclamation points of profit and gesture, as well as creative, are there. So at least a little bit for Seoul fans to cling on to. Let's move on to the, I don't know if I'd call them breakouts, but I guess I would probably call them breakout successes in the Shanghai Dragons of last season. So we'll start with Fleta coming back under existing contract. Lip as well on the DPS line under existing contract. Stand One and Void on the tank line, both under existing contract. And Fate has joined the Shanghai Dragons. And then on the support line, we've got Izzyaki and Lee Jae gone under existing contract, or rather, Izzyaki was 2021 option exercise. Lee Jae gone under existing contract. But hey, we see again the 2-2-2 with an additional tank in Fate here as a nice solid core for Shanghai.
Yeah, the pieces they used regularly all stayed.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Dia, Diem, Ding, Fearless, Giguri, and Luffy are all gone. Remarkable to have like clear delineation. There's no yellow here, Blevins.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. I think Ding and Diem are great free agents that will absolutely bolster another roster.
Mm-hmm.
This team saw a lot of success not using them, so really no harm, no foul in Shanghai letting them go. They didn't have the option to extend them and then try to trade them. Their contract ran out, so their hands were tied there. Ironically, I think they really do need a flex, not really a flex DPS player. I don't know. Fleta is a great flex, obviously MVP. Lip was a promising hit scan player. Maybe they want to just set him loose a little bit more. I don't know. They're well set up with the 7 they have right now. They could just hit the stage and go.
Yeah.
So all they can really do is add some decent depth, fill in any gaps they feel like maybe Lip has in his hero pool. We know Fleta doesn't have any gaps in his hero pool.
Nope.
And then Fate, he's reuniting with Coach Moon. And a lot to like about Shanghai.
Yeah.
They're letting a lot of players go, but at the same time, they're running it back. Fearless is a loss. Fate has big shoes to fill. I think he can fill them, though. I think they went out and got him because the coach knows what he is, knows he likes him, knows he can work with him, knows he'll be a good fit. As far as signings they could have made to replace Fearless, I think that's a really good one. Notably, they got less for Fearless than they could have if they stopped caring about everybody's feelings so much and acted like a competitive sports franchise.
Yeah.
Like, if you're letting Fearless go, why are you rejecting higher offers for him? Like, oh, you want to leave? Okay, well, that's great. Oh, you want to play for Dallas? Well, we'll see. Like, at least let Dallas was backing up the Brinks truck,
right.
And you just let them like stand pat on their initial offer because that's where Fearless wanted to go. Are you kidding me? Like, take it seriously. Oh, I know, touchy feely, everybody. Oh, but the player wanted to. It's so nice and try to win.
Yeah, let's see.
Try to win. I don't care about the rest.
Yeah.
The rest is soft, and I don't want it.
Yeah.
Get it out of here. It was like when the playoffs came around and the eliminated teams were rooting for, we're a Shanghai Stan account. Get out of here. If my team did that, I'd have been furious. Like, you don't root for other teams. Like, root for good Overwatch. Celebrate the victor. Congratulate the victor. That's fine. But like, yeah, we're a Stan account for this other team. That no, I don't think
Yeah, no, I don't
get
want
that
any
out of my face. This is a little bit that too, but it doesn't really matter because they still have so much talent here.
Yeah.
There's still so many super strong players. Lee J gone, Izzyaki is a great support line. The Fate and Void is going to be a great tank line, and we know what Fleta and Lip are on DPS, and they're excellent. So the team's fine, but it bothered me that they got weak on me here when they were dealing fearless. Get more.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on and talk about Toronto. And I know, Death, you're you're not the happiest about well, one of the two greens on here.
Well, we were lied to.
True. But I'll start with the first green. We've got Logix, Mr. Logix, thanking him in the form of bringing him back officially.
Okay, kept the meme. Great.
Kept the meme dream alive. I'll skip here and say that Aztac has signed with the Toronto Defiant.
Seems to be a solid prospect.
Yep.
I had some information on him and then lost it. Let me get it back. He comes from
Runaway
World Game
No, that's the
Star
other player.
Phoenix. He
Okay.
was on loan from Uprising Academy, it looks like. They won Overwatch Contenders 2020 Season 2. They got third place in Overwatch Contenders 2020 Season 1 in Korea. Both of those matchups were against Runaway, who everybody knows and loves. So, yeah, in the next season, they got their vengeance, won the whole thing. He's been on some winning teams for sure in Contenders, so he seems to me to be, this isn't somebody I've watched a bunch. Discord seemed to think he was a solid addition and signing. Notably, signing a Korean player like this, I don't know, maybe he speaks really good English, but I'm not going to assume that's true. Tells me that they're probably going to be working with a mixed roster, which is great to hear. Go ahead and hit me with the last one.
Beast has been...
Why? What are we doing? I was told this team was going to try to build a winner, and you benched this man a third of the way through the season, brought in Milton to replace him. Like the most whatever, lukewarm, fine, he did okay. He didn't like kill you. Seb Numlock Barton, love you, Seb. Sorry. I'm just calling it like I see it. It's not personal, I promise. But holy cow, what are we doing? His Winston was the only hero he was even remotely good at. How often is Winston meta in Overwatch? It just doesn't happen. You got the narrowest of hero pools and possibly the least important of the tanks right now. I mean, granted, we're probably going to get back towards dive at some point, but I was promised better, and so far they're running it back. Aztac is not better than Kareev until he proves he is, so I'm not excited there. You want to get me excited? Go get a legitimate top-tier free agent. This bothers me to no end. You just running it back with this goofy Patrick Mahomes-looking weirdo that can only play one tank. I don't want it. I don't want any. Thank you for memeing on Ben Best when you beat them in like week 2 last year, and I caught it in a video, and that was great, and it was fun that I caught that. Great. That's the grand total of his accomplishments in the Overwatch League, was spamming how embarrassing at Ben Best when he whiffed a shatter. That's it. That's what we signed, Blevins. That's our team that's got a commitment from management that wants to win. I'm sorry. I know we like Toronto. I know we like the people that run this team. What are you doing? If you're spending money on this roster and you're re-signing Beast, you need better people making the scouting decisions. You do. I'm out. I am mad, Blevins.
Yeah,
They need to shake this up. They need a shot in the arm. They need a big name. And I want it before our next episode, or I'm going to have to yell again.
And the thing is that like we had a big name, Death, Surefour, who like just fell off the face of the planet,
benched himself.
I
won't blame them for that.
No, it's not their fault, but like we've had that before.
thank you for moving on from the marketable team that can't win anything that I had minimal faith. I mean, they were like, looked solid. I was pumped they might be like in contention, but like, I don't think anybody had any aspirations of winning the league last year with that roster. I'm glad they're not continuing down that road, but if you're trying super hard and the main tank you landed on is Beast, try again. Yeah. You need more tryouts. That can't be you can't. And even if you are signing him and he's your backup, then you announce him second.
Yeah.
After you've told me who the exciting prospect is, and then I can sit here and go, oh, well, they thought they could work with them. Like KDG said, there's something here. I think like, let's bring him back. Give me some time to develop him on the bench, and maybe we can get some use out of him, or maybe down the line we can plug him in. If you're trying to sell a team that you care, you can't just run it back with 2 players as your first 2 announcements. Right? Like Logix is fine. I think he can be part of a winning, very, very good Overwatch League team.
Yep.
But he's going to be like small playtime, specifically when it's like Widowmaker or you know what I mean? Like specifically when it's locked and loaded that you're playing the characters that fit his hero pool. I'm like sick about Toronto. I was going to wear a jersey today, and then I'm like, Houston doesn't have a roster. I hate what Toronto's doing. I'm Bill's shirt. That's what I went with.
Ooh, that wasn't even good this weekend, unfortunately. But
it wasn't bad, but it hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I think I'm hoping that this is that we are victims of timing right now, where it's just the lining up of the timing. Maybe they're trying to finalize some things. Maybe they're waiting to. I want something exciting. We need something, even if it's an unknown, right? Even if it's an unknown, if it's a new team, we need something. I mean, there's going to be new stuff, right? There's a lot of red here. I mean, Roki, Cruz, Karif, Milton, aka Numlock, Nevix, Zeke, Surefour, Mangachu, Agility's all gone, right? So we're literally sitting on the 3 players that we talked about. So there's going to be new stuff, which is, again, nervous, exciting, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Death, that what we got dealt with as our opening hand, I'm looking for a mulligan.
I just sent one of Grayson's tweets right back at him. I literally, when they did it, I just linked his under, like, thank you, confident, we're trying, we're going to do, like, what? Like, just, you put this in my face and it was a lie. So I'm going to put it back in your, like, I didn't know what else to say. There's nothing, you can't spin this positive right now.
Right.
Aztec's a decent start, but like, come on.
Yeah. Agree. Okay.
Two more. Support, by the way. We listed him as a tank. That was just me being dumb. He's a support.
Sorry.
But anyways, okay.
Sorry, folks. Okay, 2 more teams. A tale of 2 teams. We've got the Vancouver Titans starting off. We'll start with Dalton. 2021 option exercised. Shockwave is a free agent on the DPS side. On the tank side, we've got Shredlock option exercised. And the support line, we've got Rolf option exercised. What is Vancouver looking like?
Like a team that's not trying to win very hard. They let go of Kasa, they let go of Suna, and they let go of Karkar. I don't have any beef with any of the players they let go. They're just about 3 players short on their list. What are you keeping Rolf for? The man hasn't been a notable player since a year and a half before the Overwatch League formed.
Yeah.
He's a consistent player. I didn't hate them bringing in somebody like that knows the game very well and he's not going to embarrass himself on the stage, but like, get this man back to contenders immediately before your fans' head explode.
Yeah.
Shredlock, I don't know. It's really hard to judge these guys because of the ping situation, right? Like They were put in an impossible situation last year. Dalton, one of 4 DPS, like maybe, but Shockwave's a free agent. his contract expired. He's the one that looked good. So if they want to win, they need to re-sign him. They need to bring somebody in over Dalton. They need to replace these players that they're keeping, and then this has to be their bench. They're a little bit in the same situation Toronto's in, where it's the fact that these three are on their okay, Rolf just shouldn't be on the roster, but the fact that the other two are on the roster doesn't have to be, you know, a massive detriment. It doesn't have to be a huge problem.
Right.
But the fact that they're currently your starters tells me that you're not a competitive team.
Right.
So what's the rest of the roster going to look like? What are the openings going to be filled with? And then what are you going to do to replace these options that you're keeping? Because I'm not sure that these are players ready for prime time. I just, if I'm going to be as candid as I was with Toronto, who's one of my teams, and I think I was pretty candid about Houston as well. There's just not enough information to give you a complete picture there. Nothing really negative stands out on the Houston side. I have to be honest about the Vancouver Titans as well. This is a team that doesn't appear to have a future right now, at least a competitive winning future. Obviously all the teams, you own a spot in the league, you all have that, but like that seems to be it for Vancouver. And how do you make big headline signings when you have the track record you do? When you had a finalist team and you couldn't keep them because you mismanaged them, mistreated them, they were so miserable, they just left in the middle of a season. That's not a thing that happens in sports teams. No matter how Boston keeps a roster throughout the year, they don't have to completely blow up midseason and rebuild. And they're an embarrassment. So like, it's a rough go. Vancouver maybe that's part of why they're keeping some of these guys, because they need to show that they can that players cannot be miserable human beings when they're playing for this team. And maybe that's what they need to do. Like, honestly, I don't know what the reaction is when they reach out to a player and go, hey, we want to bring you in for a trial. Like, right, if it's a middling player and they laugh in your face,
right,
then you got to do something, right? You have to field people. So I don't want to like sit here and bash management for what this roster is, because I don't know what they're dealing with. And I'll just continue to bash them for the previous mistake, because that seems to have set this all in motion, and it's the reason they're in this situation to begin with. So I'm sorry, Vancouver fans. I wish I had better news for you, but right now it's meh, and then actively bad is all you've signed. Like 2 actively bad and then 1
it could be, we could be victims. Well, we're not victims because we don't really care about Vancouver.
We don't
but
care. No.
You know, it could be just a timing thing. But like, going off of what we have, doesn't look good for Vancouver right now. Again, it can change, et cetera. But until it does, calls it like we sees it. Okay, Death. We're finally here at the end of the line. The last team to talk about here, Washington Justice. We'll start off with Decay, who has been signed officially. Tatuba under existing contract. Jerry has joined the Washington Justice to round out the DPS core. And Mag has been signed on the tank line. And that's all we have for Washington.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah.
Re-signing Decay was huge. It invalidates signing Jerry, because Jerry's not going to hit the stage unless it's a 2-hit scan meta, but he's fine for that role.
Sure.
Actively good for that role. Stitch, you popped off too late, my man. You looked good. You looked good in the playoffs. But you had too big of a body of whatever mediocre, disappointing work for them to keep you. He'll get a shot somewhere else, I think, and that's maybe on a lower end team, but Washington is trying to be what they looked like they were in the playoffs. They're trying to keep that momentum.
A taste of it.
And they're doing it right by cutting these players that screwed them all season. Roar was under existing contract, released anyways. They're eating money on that. They had to do it. Mag was the main tank free agent, the contenders call up of the year, and they landed him, and that is big. Need to see who their off tank's going to be.
Yep.
There's a lot out there, though. Somebody like Mecco could come in, stand side by side with Mag, and now they've got a great tank line. And nothing to analyze on the support because they don't have any support players at the moment.
Yep.
I thought they could have kept Aim God, but again, you've got to get away from these players that buried you, even though it certainly wasn't all of their fault. You keep some of it, right? Like, and you just risk carrying that over.
Yep.
And they can't afford that. So if you're a Washington fan, be pumped. Continue to be mad at me for me thinking that you were degenerate scumbags for the way you signed Decay. But again, it got approved, right? So it's only so much your fault. I was mad that it happened. I wasn't even super mad at them. But yeah, chat's saying Janu's good enough to go beside Mag, but they declined his option. So he's hit free agency. And when they had the ability to just run it back, I don't know, maybe they just think they can get him cheaper. He could be good enough. I it's hard to say, but again, he's another one like Aim God, who I think is good enough to be an Overwatch League. I think's a good player, but I thought Janu was massively overrated in Vancouver, and he didn't really do anything here. So I don't expect him to be back. You have to shake things up, and you're spending, right? Like Decay was not cheap.
Yep.
Jerry, I don't know, but he was, at least he had that marketability, like Jerry, like he was the guy. And yeah, he's, I don't know. He wasn't bare minimum. Like he's not league minimum. Jerry was, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So yeah, I'm expecting them to reset all those other players, and yeah, be pumped, Washington fans. It looks to me like you guys are building something here. So it's going to come down to coaching staff and how well they're prepared. And that's a really good spot for a team to be in right now. There's coaches, listen, Krusty's hiring new people and teaching new people how to do this job every day. Okay. So even if you don't have that right, get your core, perform well, have the kind of Paris season you had last year, and then Dallas will buy your whole roster the next season and you're rich. So you got that to look forward to, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
K probably won't go to Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, I think definitely an exciting time for Justice, but yeah, that's it. We made it through. I'm sure we're going to be getting trickle in, and we're going to be getting updates as they come in the following weeks. But there is your off-season free agent extravaganza. We went through every single team. If you didn't catch our first episode of it, it was the previous one that we had on the channel. So you'll get the full teams there, and we of course we're referencing.
That was Atlanta, just for consistency's sake. That was Atlanta, Boston, Chengdu, Dallas, Florida, and Guangzhou was that first episode. And we covered at the beginning of the show some of the additional things. If you go back and listen, you're gonna have to combine things a little bit.
So listen to both episodes. You'll get the full breadth of it, and we'll be updating, of course, as we get more news coming through. But Death, that's it. That is
we did it, man. I need a nap.
We did it, and that puts a wrap on that, and puts a wrap on the 5 years, Death. It's kind of crazy to think that 5 years.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, congrats. Again, High Noon Podcast we're sending it off on its first day of kindergarten here, so
I don't know what it is, but we did it.
We did something. We sure did. But
we did a thing.
We did a thing. But that is going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Of course, you can find the show everywhere on the internet, including we're not going to put out any fleets because I still don't know what that is. But you can find us everywhere. High Noon Podcast.
And if you're listening out there and you're thinking about fleeting, don't do it. I'm here to tell you, nobody that follows you wants you to fleet. Not one person is like, I want fleets from this. No.
But if you do want us to fleet, at High Noon Podcast on Twitter, let us know. And you can also let us know in Discord at discord.me/High Noon Podcast. If you're listening to this and you want us to fleet, just put an at Deathblow in Twitter and put a number 1. Tag Deathblow and put a number 1.
Deathblow TTV.
Yes.
I'll make sure you get the right at for me because nobody's going to do it.
Yeah, that's true. No one's going to. Add Deathblow TTV on the Discord. And of course, that's discord.me/High Noon Podcast. Death, you're at Deathblow TTV everywhere, right? Pretty much.
I am. Even on Twitch, which people don't understand why I would do that. It's for consistency across the board everywhere.
That's the smart thing to do.
Yes.
It is the smart thing to do. Branding 092 right there. But you can find me on Twitter at @the_Blevins. And of course, you can find the podcast at High Noon Podcast. But that's going to be it again. Thank you, everyone, for listening and for watching. For Deathblow, I'm the Blevins. And again, thank you, everyone, for 5 years. It's kind of crazy to say that out loud. But again, for the 200-something time, it's High Noon.